we're starting with AEW Collision, as CM Punk had a lot to say in his first promo in months in front of a live crowd. From speaking about his wrestling career to referring to a certain elite tag team as counterfeit bucks, Punk was at home on the mic, and what fans heard was as genuine as it gets from the man himself. PW Insider reported behind their payroll that CM Punk's promo on AEW Collision was 100% off the cuff. They report, "For those who are asking, the CM Punk promo on AEW Collision this past Saturday was 100% off the cuff and not verbiage that was pre-written and approved. We are told that Punk had certain lines in mind, but this wasn't a case of anything that was homogenized by management. Punk was given the freedom, as he always has been given before, to go out and speak to the crowd. There was no indication that AEW management had any issues with what was stated, and among several people we spoke to in the company, there was a sense of relief that Punk was back and that he got through his first match. There were some who even theorized that, as crazy as it might seem reading it, that it wouldn't be long before he would be asked to return to Dynamite. While Punk is going to be a regular on Collision, it is believed that he could show up sporadically on Dynamite, and is rumored for this week's episode, which will also take place in Chicago. Considering how Punk acted it all out and some of his social media posts since, his Collision promo could have gone much worse for AEW. And what do you make to what Punk had to say? During the premiere episode of AEW Collision, Andrade El Idolo returned to action with a win over Buddy Matthews and made the AEW Trios champion tap out to the figure 8. This is, of course, the submission Andrade's wife Charlotte Flair uses in WWE, and the Queen even congratulated Andrade on his win, but what did WWE make of this maneuver? When Ringside News asked their sources within WWE, they were told that the higher-ups in the company aren't bothered by Andrade's use of the figure 8, nor are they bothered about anything else in AEW. A source in creative said, "They're the minor leagues. It's typical they'd pay tribute to their significant others, since the significant others, being in the major leagues, are much bigger stars." While WWE sources claim they aren't concerned with anything from AEW, that doesn't seem to be entirely true, and we've seen plenty of examples of WWE booking in response to Tony Khan. Andrade teased returning to WWE last year, but it's unclear if WWE were ever interested, and if he thought his figure 8 was going to get Triple H's attention, then the former NXT champion is greatly mistaken. But what did you think of Andrade's use of the move during Collision? How would you react if you were sat in charge of WWE? Share your views in the comments down below. When Brody Lee's life came to a tragically abrupt end in 2020, AEW made sure to take care of his family, and Amanda Huber has worked closely with the company ever since. Huber has proven that she is more than a pity hire with all her hard work as part of AEW's community outreach team, and now she has a new job in the company. PW Insider reports that Amanda Huber is now working with the AEW production team, but it was not noted exactly what she is doing in that new job title. In addition to Amanda, Brody Lee Jr. has a contract with AEW waiting for him when he turns 18, and appeared at WrestleMania 39 this past April, as the Huber family are moving forward in the wrestling world. On July 1st, WWE will travel to London for Money in the Bank, marking the first time the event will take place outside of the United States. There's been a lot of talk about who will be leaving London with the men's and women's briefcases, and it appears WWE has come to a decision. When Ringside News asked around, they were told that WWE has locked in plans for both the men's and women's ladder matches, and neither finish is expected to change. For weeks, it was believed that LA Knight would be winning the men's ladder match, until reports came out that WWE was considering an alternative to the former Impact World Champion. As for the women's match, there's no word on who WWE plan on winning, though booking odds have placed Io Sky as the favorite to win the match. As we've seen in the past, a Money in the Bank win can transform somebody's career, and who do you hope to see leave London with a guaranteed title opportunity? We've got news from Impact Wrestling now, as Moose has been one of the top stars in the company for some time, and that trend is going to continue. Taking to social media, Moose revealed that not only has he signed a new deal with Impact, but it's the longest deal anyone's ever signed with the company, adding that he has a lot of work left to do. Moose went on to say that when someone thinks of Impact Wrestling, they think of the likes of Kurt Angle or AJ Styles, but wants his name to be on the top of that list. It's been reported that WWE had their eye on Moose, so much so that they would have had the former world champion skip NXT entirely, but he'll be sticking with Impact for a long time to come. For close to a year, Dominik Mysterio and Rhea Ripley have been inseparable on TV, and Dominik's devotion to his mommy extends to untelevised live events. WWE recently held their Super Show in Charleston, West Virginia, and Dominik Mysterio competed against his father Ray, but had to deal with a fan before stepping into the ring. During his entrance, Dominik encountered a fan holding a sign that read "Diarrhea Ripley" and immediately tore it up in support of the reigning WWE Women's World Champion. Dominik would end up losing to his father in a street fight, getting whipped by his dad in the process, but at least he was able to defend the honor of his mommy at this untelevised event. Now, this week's Raw saw returns, sneak attacks, and a lot of build towards Money in the Bank, but what we saw on TV wasn't always the original plan. For weeks now, Vince McMahon has been making changes to Raw's programming, and while these changes are typically small and just changing the sequence of segments, he did much more than that this week. Before Raw went on the air, Fightful Select reported that McMahon had made drastic changes to Raw, though no segments had been cut from the broadcast. Instead, it was said that elements, including the opening segment, had been altered, and many suspect that a Rollins title defense was going to happen prior to McMahon changing things. McMahon returned to WWE in January and said he would be solely focusing on WWE's corporate side of things, specifically finding a buyer for the company and securing media rights, but he has been hands-on with WWE programming for weeks. Vince McMahon is back in charge of WWE and ultimately can run the company however he sees fit, and while WWE's product is doing very well right now, never forget who is the one pulling the strings. More from AEW, and a lot has been said about the status of AEW's locker room even before CM Punk's actions on the All Out media scrum. In the weeks prior to All Out, meetings were held backstage encouraging AEW talent not to make any of their personal issues with other wrestlers public, advice some clearly didn't listen to. Some have even said that the AEW locker room is toxic, or at least more toxic than it should be, but this week, the Elite saw the funny side to those claims. When Matt Jackson tried out a toxic candy during the latest being the Elite, Kenny Omega joked that Matt took a flavor appropriate to our locker room environment. As funny as this comment is, perhaps there was some truth to the statement, given that the relationship between CM Punk and the Elite is so bad, they're having to be kept on different shows. Given that Punk took a dig at the Bucks during his AEW Collision promo, the relationship between the two sides is still pretty toxic, despite Omega and his allies seeing the funny side to these reports. And we're ending with Gunther, who has dominated WWE as Intercontinental Champion for over a year, and his reign has been praised by countless fans and those in the industry. From his 5-star classic with Sheamus in Cardiff to setting a record in the Men's Royal Rumble, Gunther is riding high. And what's next for the leader of Imperium? During a recent interview with Wrestling News Co., Gunther was asked to name the opponent he'd like to battle at SummerSlam, and revealed that he's open to facing literally anybody who steps up to him. Gunther is closing in on the record for the longest reign as Intercontinental Champion, but will have to get through SummerSlam first. And who would you like to see face the Austrian this August?